He wanted freedom. No ties, no responsibilities, just success. The night Daniel signed the papers, he told Ava, "You'll thank me one day." But he didn't know that the woman he walked away from was carrying something far more precious than his ambition, his child. Years later, he stood in a hospital corridor, the sterile scent of antiseptic burning his chest, when the doctor said, "She's on a ventilator. We're not sure she'll make it." Daniel's world cracked open. Through the glass, he saw her, pale, fragile, and beside her, a little boy clutching a worn photograph of him. Freedom had never felt so heavy. And for the first time, the ruthless millionaire CEO wished he had never let her go. The night Daniel Reed signed the divorce papers, the city lights of New York glimmered beneath his penthouse window, beautiful, distant, and completely hollow. He told himself this was freedom. No more arguments. No more emotional chaos. No more us. But deep inside, he knew what he had walked away from. Ava, with her soft laugh and eyes that could see the good in him when even he couldn't. She had been his peace. His chaos, his reason to breathe, and he had thrown it all away. It wasn't that he didn't love her, that was the problem. He loved her too much, and that terrified him. Daniel wasn't built for vulnerability. He was built for control, power, and precision, everything love made impossible. When Ava told him she was pregnant, something inside him snapped. The walls he'd built his entire life turned into prison bars. "I can't do this," he'd said, pacing the living room, avoiding her teary eyes. "Daniel, it's our baby," she whispered, one trembling hand over her stomach. "You said you wanted a family someday." "Not now," he barked. "Not when everything's finally coming together." Ava had looked at him then, really looked, and in her silence, he saw the truth. She didn't recognize him anymore. He didn't either. She turned away before the tears fell, her voice barely a whisper. "I hope your freedom keeps you warm at night." That was the last thing she said before walking out. The next morning, Daniel buried himself in work. Every success became armor, every promotion, another wall between him and the regret gnawing at his chest. He told himself she'd move on. She deserved someone softer, someone who could love her without fear. He told himself the child would be better off without a man like him. Years passed. Daniel Reed, the ruthless CEO, the man who made headlines for his billion-dollar empire, became a symbol of success. But when the parties ended and the lights dimmed, he always saw her face. The way she smiled when she painted, the way she'd reach for his hand in sleep, the way he'd pulled away. He tried to silence it with work, with deals, with people who wanted his wealth but not his heart. Nothing worked until one evening, 5 years later, his assistant knocked on his office door. "Sir," she said gently, "you might want to sit down." Daniel frowned. "What is it?" She hesitated, then slid a tablet across the desk. A headline glared up at him. "Local woman injured in hit and run. Ava Lane in critical condition." The name hit him like a gunshot. His fingers froze over the glass as he read the article. Again and again. Critical condition. Hospitalized. Single mother. Single mother. His pulse pounded in his ears. He stood abruptly, the chair clattering to the floor. "Get the car," he ordered, voice trembling for the first time in years. The drive to Mercy General Hospital felt endless. Every red light, every turn, every second was torture. He didn't even realize he'd been gripping his phone so tightly his knuckles turned white by the time he reached the hospital. It was raining. The sky wept where he couldn't. Inside, the sterile smell hit him like guilt. "Excuse me," he said to the nurse at the counter, breath uneven. "Ava Lane, where is she?" The nurse looked up sympathetically. "Are you family?" His throat tightened. "I was." She nodded slowly. "I see you. 3rd floor. But sir, she's on a ventilator." The words stole the air from his lungs. Ventilator. He gripped the counter to steady himself, then forced his legs toward the elevator. As the doors closed, flashes of memory overwhelmed him. Ava laughing on the beach, wind in her hair. Ava painting their first apartment. Ava whispering, "You'll be a great father, Daniel." He pressed a hand to his chest as if he could stop the pain from tearing him apart. When he entered the ICU, he almost didn't recognize her. Her once bright skin was pale, her lips colorless. Machines surrounded her like silent judges, each beep a reminder of what he'd done. He walked to her bedside slowly, afraid she'd disappear if he blinked. Her hand was cold, fragile. He brushed his thumb over it gently, whispering, "Ava, it's me." No response. He swallowed hard. "You were right, I was a coward. I thought freedom meant walking away, but I've been a prisoner ever since." His voice broke. "Please, don't leave me like I left you." He bowed his head beside her hand, fighting back tears. And then a sound. A small voice, behind him. Are you talking to mommy? Daniel turned sharply. A little boy stood at the door, no more than 5, with messy brown hair and eyes the same blue as Daniel's. He clutched a small toy truck and looked at Daniel curiously. Mommy said Daddy was working far away, the boy said softly. Are you him? Daniel's breath caught. He couldn't speak, couldn't move. The boy stepped closer, frowning. Why are you crying, Mr. He dropped to one knee, voice shaking. What's your name? Liam, the boy said proudly. Liam Lane Reed. The last name hit him like lightning. He looked back at Ava's motionless body, and the truth crashed over him. He had left them both. The freedom he'd fought for had cost him everything. Daniel knelt frozen on the white hospital floor, staring at the little boy who carried his eyes, his own eyes. The air felt thick, like the room itself refused to move until he spoke. But what could he say? How do you talk to the child you never knew existed? Liam, Daniel whispered, the name breaking on his tongue like a confession. The boy tilted his head, curiosity replacing fear. Do you know my name? Daniel swallowed hard. Your mom told me about you. It wasn't a lie. Not completely. Ava had told him once. He just hadn't listened. Liam smiled shyly, clutching his toy truck tighter. Mommy said Daddy was strong, that he builds big buildings. Do you build buildings? A lump rose in Daniel's throat. She told him about me. Even after everything, she hadn't erased him. He nodded slowly. Yeah, buddy, I do. The boy's eyes lit up. That's so cool. Mommy said Daddy was the smartest man ever. Daniel almost laughed, but it turned into a choked sound somewhere. Between a sob and a sigh, the nurse appeared in the doorway. Liam, sweetheart, your aunt is looking for you. The little boy turned toward the nurse, then looked back at Daniel. Will you still be here when I come back? Daniel hesitated. His voice came out hoarse. I'm not going anywhere again. Liam smiled the same small, crooked smile Ava used to give him and ran off down the hallway. Daniel stayed there for a long moment, staring after the child who had just unknowingly broken him completely. Hours passed. The rain outside turned into soft gray drizzle. Daniel didn't move from Ava's bedside. He held her hand, watching the monitors beep steadily, each sound a fragile promise she was still fighting. He wanted to tell her everything, that he'd missed her every single day, that every boardroom victory, every champagne celebration, every award felt like ash in his mouth without her, that the nights were too long, the mornings too quiet, and his heart, his proud, selfish heart, had never stopped whispering her name. But all he could do was sit there, hoping she could hear what words couldn't say. The door opened quietly. A woman in her late 30s entered, Ava's sister, Emma. Her expression hardened when she saw him. Of all people, she muttered, setting down a small bag. Why are you here now, Daniel? He didn't flinch. He deserved the venom in her voice. He paused, glancing at the machines. I had to see her. Emma crossed her arms. You should have thought about that before you abandoned her pregnant. Her words were daggers, each one earned. He nodded, accepting them. I know, you know, she repeated bitterly. You have no idea what you did to her. She worked 2 jobs. She never once complained, even when she was too tired to stand. All because she didn't want your son to grow up hating you. Daniel's breath hitched. She told him, I was a good man. Emma looked at him sharply. That's what mothers do. They protect their kids, even from the truth. Silence filled the room. Finally, she sighed. Liam deserves better than a ghost who shows up when it's too late. She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. If she wakes up, you tell her yourself. Then she was gone. That night, Daniel stayed in the ICU. He didn't care about meetings or investors. For the first time, nothing else mattered. He thought about the years he'd wasted building walls instead of a family. He thought about Ava, working late, carrying their child alone, walking through every heartbreak he caused. He thought about Liam, his son, growing up without a father, asking questions no one should have to answer. He pressed his palms against his face, tears finally breaking through years of restraint. I ruined everything, he whispered to the dark room. But please give me one more chance to make it right. Morning light spilled through the window, gentle and golden. Daniel blinked awake to the sound of small footsteps. Liam stood there again, in the same hospital pajamas, holding 2 cups of juice. I brought one for you, he said proudly, handing Daniel a tiny cup. Daniel smiled, accepting it carefully. Thank you, buddy. The boy sat on the chair beside him, swinging his legs. Mommy always says sharing makes people feel less sad. Daniel chuckled softly. though his eyes were wet. Your mommy's very smart. She's the best, Liam said without hesitation. She never gives up. He turned toward Ava, who still lay motionless, and climbed onto the chair beside her bed. Mommy, I brought juice for Daddy too. Daniel's chest tightened at the word Daddy. He reached out instinctively, adjusting the blanket over Liam's lap. You're taking good care of her. The boy nodded solemnly. I promised I would, but you can help now, right? You're strong too. Daniel's throat closed up. Yeah, he managed, voice barely steady. I'll help now. Liam smiled, satisfied. Then Mommy will wake up soon. She always keeps her promises. Daniel looked at her, the woman he'd once been too afraid to love. Now fighting for her life, and for the first time in years, he whispered a prayer. Not for success, not for redemption, just for her heartbeat to never stop. Hours later, the doctor entered with a faint smile. She's stable, he said quietly, her condition's improving. Daniel exhaled, his body trembling in relief. Thank God. He turned toward Ava, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Did you hear that, sweetheart? You're getting better. Liam's waiting for you. I'm waiting for you. He didn't realize Liam had fallen asleep in the chair, his small hand resting over Ava's. Daniel gently covered them both with the blanket, the three of them finally together, even if one of them was still between life and death. And, as the night deepened, Daniel whispered, I promise, Ava, if you open your eyes, I'll never walk away again. Outside, the city that once symbolized his freedom felt small, because real freedom, he finally understood, wasn't about walking away. It was about having someone to come back to. The steady rhythm of the heart monitor was the only sound in the room. Daniel hadn't slept in 2 nights. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes red from holding back tears, but he didn't care. He was afraid that if he closed his eyes, even for a second, she'd slip away again. He held Ava's hand gently, tracing the small scar near her wrist. He remembered how she used to wave it around while laughing, telling him it was from when she'd fallen off her bike as a kid. Now that same hand lay motionless, pale against the white hospital sheets. Liam stirred in his chair beside the bed, blinking his sleepy eyes. Daddy, he whispered, his voice small. Daniel looked up instantly. Yeah, buddy, Mommy's still sleeping. Can we wake her up now? The question broke something inside him. He forced a smile. Not yet, champ, but soon. The boy nodded, then placed his tiny palm over Ava's hand. Mommy, Daddy's here now. You can wake up. Daniel's throat tightened. He turned his face away, blinking fast. He wasn't the man who deserved that kind of faith, not from his son, not from the woman he'd broken. Just then, the doctor entered quietly. She's responding to treatment, he said with a faint smile. Her body's healing. What she needs now is peace and a reason to come back. Daniel nodded, clutching her hand tighter. Then I'll be that reason. Ours turned into another day. Liam was taken home by his aunt for some rest, but Daniel stayed. He couldn't leave, not now. Not when every heartbeat on that monitor sounded like hope. He sat by Ava's bedside, his voice low but steady. Remember that night by the lake? You told me you didn't need a mansion or $1 million car. You just wanted me to be there. I didn't understand then. His voice broke. But I do now. He took a deep breath, the weight of years pressing down on his chest. I thought freedom meant walking away. That love was something that held me back. But you were the only thing that ever made me feel free. He brushed her hair away from her face, his hand trembling. I missed every first step, every birthday, every smile of our son. I missed you. And if you can hear me, Ava, please come back. Let me make it right. Just once. The room fell silent again, except for the sound of the machines. Then, a faint twitch. Daniel froze. Her fingers moved, just slightly, like a whisper. He leaned closer, heart pounding. Ava. Her eyelids fluttered, her breathing hitched. Then, slowly, painfully, she opened her eyes. For a long second, she just stared at the ceiling, disoriented. Then her gaze shifted and met his. The man she'd loved. The man who'd left her. The man now sitting beside her with tears streaming down his face. Daniel. Her voice cracked, weak and broken, but it was enough to shatter him. He stood, gripping her hand tightly. I'm here. I'm right here. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Why? Why now? He sank to his knees beside the bed, his voice trembling. Because I was a fool. Because I didn't know what I had until I lost it. And because I saw him, Ava, our son. He's perfect. He's kind. He's everything you are. Ava closed her eyes again, silent tears falling. You left me when I needed you most. I know, he whispered, his voice raw. and I've hated myself for it every day. I don't expect forgiveness. I just need you to know that I'm never walking away again." Her lips trembled. "Liam, he always asked about you." I didn't know what to say. Daniel rested his forehead against her hand. "Tell him his dad finally found his way home." The door opened gently, and a little voice filled the room. "Mommy." Ava turned her head slowly. Liam stood there, holding a small teddy bear, eyes wide with hope. Daniel looked up, his breath catching. The boy ran to her side, climbing carefully onto the bed. "You woke up." Ava smiled weakly, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Hey, my brave boy." Liam looked at her, then at Daniel. "Daddy said he'd help. He didn't lie." Ava's eyes flickered toward Daniel, a mix of disbelief and something softer. "Daddy? Ha!" Daniel managed a teary smile. "Guess I couldn't hide it anymore." Liam grabbed both their hands. "Now we're together. Like the stories Mommy used to tell." Ava laughed softly through her tears, brushing his hair back. "You remember those stories?" "Yeah," he said proudly. "The ones where Daddy always comes back." Later that evening, when Liam fell asleep, curled up beside Ava, Daniel sat quietly on the edge of the bed. The hospital lights were dim, casting a golden glow over the three of them. Ava looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You can't undo what happened, Daniel." He nodded. "I know, but I can start again if you'll let me." She studied his face, searching for the man she once knew, and this time, she didn't see the cold CEO who'd left her behind. She saw the man who'd stayed by her side for days, broken, human, changed. Finally, she whispered, "You can stay." Daniel's breath caught. "You mean?" She gave a faint smile. "I'm too tired to fight, and Liam needs his father." He reached for her hand carefully. "He'll have one, and so will you." Her eyes softened, and for the first time in years, she didn't pull away. Outside, dawn began to rise over the city, a quiet symbol of new beginnings. The same man who once ran from love now sat beside it, holding on like it was the only thing keeping him alive. And in that hospital room, surrounded by forgiveness and second chances, Daniel whispered to the woman he'd broken, "I wanted freedom, but you were it all along." As the first rays of sunlight touched the hospital window, Daniel finally realized, freedom wasn't walking away, it was finding the courage to stay. He once left the woman who loved him, believing success mattered more than family, but when he saw her on that hospital bed, fighting for her life, and their son holding her hand, his world stopped. Some people only learn the value of love when they're about to lose it forever, and some are lucky enough to be given a second chance. If you were in Ava's place, would you forgive the man who broke you, or walk away, even after he came back in tears? Tell me in the comments, because sometimes, forgiveness isn't weakness, it's the bravest kind of love. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional love stories.